All right, it looks like we are here. Welcome to Reachkeep.com. This is Mike here on your friendly YouTube channel, the Reachkeep channel, and we're talking about the effective Sunday school teacher. And I'm very excited about this. We had just a great training last week as well, and I just really enjoyed that. Let me scooch this camera just a little closer so I can look you in the eye. Okay, there we go. Hey, welcome to our channel. Today we're talking about this whole idea of helping us to be able to speak so kids can understand. That was kind of the basic that we want to talk about. How do I speak? How do I teach so that they clearly understand? And we're talking about the 7 laws of learning, and we're on the 3rd law now. And the 3rd law, specifically, let me read it here for you. The language between the teacher and the learner must be common to both. Okay, now this makes a lot of sense. The obvious illustration of someone speaking in Japanese or someone speaking over here in Hungarian or Dutch or whatever, they're not understanding each other. And we probably have all seen some comedy sketches where people misunderstood because of language. We don't want comedy in our classrooms. We want connection in our classrooms, and we want to make sure our kids are understanding. And so the law here is that the language has to be the same. Now, no amount of gadgets, and in this day and age now we have iPads, and we got this and we got that, and we got all sorts of cool things that we can use. And we talked about last week. We talked about engagement and holding their attention, and you can have all sorts of engagement techniques. But if your language is not the same, if you're not speaking the same language, you're not going to connect with them. Now, I want to dive into this obviously deeper, and we're not dealing with just the idea of English and Spanish and Chinese or whatever here. I wrote a couple things in my notes here. Language kind of started out with I guess I'm not a historian on this, don't really know, but the idea is, there was sign language, and there was, hunters were marking things on the trail, the game trail, and, different things like that. We've kind of heard some of how those things happen. When different languages evolved, obviously evolved is not really the right word there, but God brought those things about. The people gravitated where they could understand each other. And a very important concept here is that if we're going to have learning occur, there needs to be a bonding of the language. There's got to be some things that going on there, and we've got to be on the same page as the child. Now, I'm going to get into a couple things here, and I want you to hold on to the end, because I've got a kind of one of the big mistakes that we always make when we're teaching children. Some of the things we look at, but I'll get to there. But I got just a couple different statistics I found out, and here is one of them is by the time that you're an adult, you own, I guess, have tens of thousands of words in your vocabulary that you can use. But most of the time when we're working with children, the average 10-year-old knows about 1,500 words. And we have a tendency to kind of abuse that. And so that is where this whole lesson comes in. And if you are a Sunday school teacher, we want you to just grab hold of these concepts. So here's the very simple first one here. And there's a lot of things that have been written on this. Number one is just make sure that you explain words, that you take time to explain what words happen to mean. Now, you should always use the simplest and the shortest sentence structure, the simplest words that you can, and try to use simple illustrations to define a word. If you're trying to define a word with a child, the best way to do that is to give some type of object lesson first and then explain what that word is. Don't say the word first and start them with confusion. They won't know what that means, but start with some type of an object lesson and then move into the explanation of what that. Use the object, something that's familiar with them, and move into the process that they know the word. So take time to explain the words. The content that we teach as biblicist, as Bible preachers, is often some complex words. I mean, there's some complex thoughts. There's a lot of abstract things going on there. And so taking time to really explain those words is one of the first and most important things that you can do. And so when you go through your lesson, and if you have a prepared lesson and it's already done for you, you can grab hold of that and go through and circle some of those words and go, that word, redeemed or whatever. Those words are way too big for certain age groups. Now, this obviously depends on if you have teens or if you have, preschoolers. But work on defining the words and trying to figure out what exactly and how you want to do that. Figure out those words. The second thing that I wrote here in my notes is just the idea of explain the words. Okay, so not only do you, or pardon me, explain the concept. Here, I can't even read my own notes. Explain the concepts that you're teaching. So if you're teaching a word, you can define that word, give an illustration, but make sure that you're dealing with concepts that you really take time to kind of dive into what those words are kind of carrying those thoughts. And sometimes for children, it takes 2 or 3 different illustrations for them to understand. Like if you're using the word redeemed and purchased and buy back and some of that, you can act that out, and you can talk about buying something back. You can talk about returning something at the store. They probably have seen something like that. You can actually illustrate it and give someone something and then buy it from them and then buy it back from them. You kind of go through and act some of that out. And as you do that, you're going to be able to kind of get to their level on the language. So we just can't have those gigantic words and talk way up there and have the big words. We need to explain the words. We need to also take time to make sure that we're explaining the concepts that are there, that are important to them. Now, this last thing, and then I'll give you this kind of mistake that we make at the end. This last thing is very important. I want to spend a little bit more time on this. I want to kind of jump to this, is make sure that you're speaking at the proper level for the children. So for example, I'm talking to adults here for the most part, Sunday school teachers. So, we would know, we'd be at the adult level. If I'm working with other kids, you need to speak at what their level happens to be. Now, there's always some benefit, and obviously with children, you can kind of sit down low or sit in a smaller chair and speak at that level physically. But what I'm talking about is the things that they are attuned to. So let me go through just a couple little kind of developmental things to help you. If you have kids that are up through, kind of up into that kindergarten, right in that area, they are, especially the, 3s and 4s, the key word that they are involved in their life is everything is new to them. Everything is a discovery. Everything is brand new to them. So if you're teaching a lesson, you're going to want to talk about the discovery aspects of that particular lesson and kind of go into the depths of what that would be. As David, as a sheep herder, some of the things that he discovered, and he went to see his brothers fighting Goliath and how, the discovery that was going on there. You're going to want to kind of dive into some of the discovery aspects of that, because little children are inquisitive and they're trying to learn new things, and they're trying to, pick up some of that kind of stuff. Now, if your kids are a little bit older, if you're dealing like, kindergarten up to, third, fourth grade, somewhere in there, the idea is more engagement. It's more kind of the hands-on, like what would you do in this situation? What would you do? And that's where, especially when you start to act things out as a teacher, you start to get on their wavelength and you're communicating their language, because they like to see things acted out. They love stories that are acted out, and they love, being involved with those. So this is the idea of when you're communicating with them, you communicate with younger kids at the discovery level. A little bit older kids, kindergarten through like fourth grade, you're going to deal with them much more in this idea of the engagement and what would you do. The little kids would be, what is this? And the next ones would be, what do we, what does this, what the engagement aspect of it, what are we doing with this kind of thing? What we do there? As you get a little bit older into kind of the middle school type of thing, and here's what we've learned. And by the way, picked up a lot of this stuff from a great book called It's Just a Phase. It's published by the ReThink group. It's called Just a Phase, and it's you can find it on Amazon. A great book, talks about some of these levels, and we've taught our teachers these. The next level is this idea of, in middle school, kind of, really fifth grade up to about eighth grade, is some of that idea of affirmation. In other words, what does this mean to me? And this is where, if you're teaching the David Goliath story, like, how would you feel if you were David? How would you feel if you were the brothers? How would you feel if you were David's dad and just sent him off to the battlefield, to run this errand? How would you feel if you were Goliath? You can kind of start to get into some of the feeling thing, and they will start to grab hold of some of that that affirmation. This is where I am. I would be afraid. I would be fearful. And you're communicating at their level, at their language. And that's why I'm saying this language needs to be the same. Little kids are not going to be learning the doctrine of certain things. They're going to be learning the discovery, the light bulb turn on thing. And the next level kids are learning how to engage. And then the middle school type kids are learning much more this affirmation type of thing. The last group is if you're into the upper grades and you're teaching like, ninth grade all the way through high school up into college and some of that, it's the idea of mobilization. They are ready to go and they're ready to put it to work. So how would you handle this situation? Where would you go with this? What would you do? That would be just kind of one of those things, what is your idea of what we could do with this story? And you kind of give them the mobilization kind of concept there and let them kind of put feet to things. Now, let me give you this danger here, and then we'll wrap this one up. The danger is when you're teaching, okay, and almost every teaching situation has a start and a finish time. And so it's, so 30 minutes or 20 minutes or 40 minutes, whatever happens to be. And in our format, in Western culture today, we do not get a lot of feedback. And so people will be kind of nodding their head and they'll be kind of giving you some level of affirmation or whatever. That doesn't mean that they are connected. And the danger here is that they are missing and the wire is broken. Okay. The electrical line is broken and there's no longer any juice going through it. And you are not connecting with them anymore. And we can have that happen and not even know it happens. Now, I wrote down a couple things here. It says, kids don't talk back and ask for clarity. They just don't. In our society, very few people will stop you in the middle of the lesson and say, what do you mean there? Okay. And because we come from the kind of the preaching background, and that's sort of the top of the pyramid, the adult thing, there's very little feedback there. So as a Sunday school teacher, you have a tendency not to have feedback. And let me say something on this whole language thing. That is going to be a danger for you. If you do not get feedback, you will not know if you are talking and connecting with them. People could be rattling away, and I've been in some foreign countries and they're rattling away, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm just nodding my head, okay, because there's not a connection going on there. You need to make sure. You need to absolutely make sure that you take time, and a wise teacher will take time after every break or after every little point and kind of solicit a little bit of feedback. So now where are we going with this? And what did you think? And what do you think about David? And what do you think would go on in that story there? And you kind of get a little bit of feedback and you see if they are connecting with you. It is such an important thing. It is something that we often miss, that we do not ask for feedback. Now, if you're doing the feedback thing, make sure you don't just do it at the end. Many Sunday school teachers, well-meaning, they get to the end of the lesson and they go, do you have any questions? And then a couple little questions come, or out of time, we got to go. And oftentimes people come and go, boy, that question answer thing was really good, but we only got 2 or 3 questions in because we ran out of time physically. And there are other things going on when you're teaching Sunday school. There's other classes being dismissed. There's parents coming to get kids. There's nursery being dismissed. There's services that are going on. And so we do have some hard stops that we have to look at. So the best way to do that, to find out if you are speaking their language, is to start to ask questions and to kind of bring that clarity in earlier in the lesson and bring it in at every little bit. So I didn't want you to miss that. Just an important thing. Again, if you're interested in that book, it's called It's Just a Phase. It is published by ReThink Group, which is part of the Orange curriculum family. If you're familiar with Sunday school curriculum, we've used their stuff for a long time. We think on the same wavelength as the Orange people. We have some great philosophy going on there. So I want to share that with you. Just a reminder here too, if you missed this, you can always watch again on YouTube any other time. If you're not here live, a lot of people aren't catching this live. I understand how that works, but make sure that you share this. And I thank you so much for watching the the last one where we talked about all the sharing type of stuff. So back to this little topic here, how to talk to kids so that they will listen, okay, is really what we have been covering. Make sure you take time to hit the thumbs up button for me there and hit the share button. We appreciate that very much. And if you've not caught our podcast, you can go over to the Better Sundays podcast and we'll connect with you there. So until next week, this is Mr. Mike signing out. Thank you so much, and God bless you. You guys have a great Lord's Day, and we will see you next time. Ta-ta.